Was. Shall I start again? Thank you. I'll begin with item 1 then, to seek approval from the Council to approve and sign the minutes of the full Council meeting held on the 31st of July 2023 as a correct record. Do I have your approval to sign the minutes of the full Council meeting?
So move.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillors Drayson and Gordon.
Thank you. And I see Councillor Ashan G1 is on remote, joining the meeting remotely. Thank you. Item 3 then, the disclosure of interest. So are there any disclosures by members of personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in matters on the agenda? If so, please would you declare them now and state whether you regard this personal interest as prejudicial under the terms of conduct. Councillor Proshak.
Thank you, Chair. Personal, I'm on the board of the Delaware Trustees.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
As Chair of Rother District Housing Company, item 16, and it's a non-prejudicial interest.
Councillor Timpey.
Yeah, declared on the board of the Delaware.
Thank you. Councillor Beverley Cooper. Sorry.
I'm on the board of the Rother District Housing Company.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you. As always, should you suddenly realise when we're halfway through discussing something that you should have declared, please do declare then, and also redeclare at the beginning of the item. Thank you very much. So item 4 then, Chair's communications. I'd first of all like to begin by thanking my fellow councillors who joined me at the civic service at St Mary's Church in Battle yesterday afternoon. Here, we solemnly declared that we will do our best during our term of office to exercise the responsibility committed to us wisely, diligently, and faithfully, mindful of the good of the community and the needs of the people that we serve. We also heard our Chief Executive Officer read these words: live in harmony with one another, be willing to associate with people of low position, to be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone, and if it is at all possible, as far as it depends on you, to live at peace with everyone. And she ended with the words, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. They were lovely words and they were very well read. Thank you very much, Lorna. Now, August may have been a quiet council meeting-wise, but both Councillor Richard Thomas and I have both been busy representing Rother District Council at various events. I opened the Polgrove Open Bowls tournament on Monday, the 7th of August, and with the Mayor of Bexhill, we bowled the first balls on pristine greens. ID Verdi, who have the contract for the care of the greens, are to be commended for their immaculate tending of this part of the Polgrove, and Bexhill, and indeed ourselves, should be very proud of the high standard reached. The weather was amazing, and when I returned on the Saturday to present awards and to thank all those who took part, I was surprised at how very exciting it was to watch the men's and the women's finals, and the group matches too. I know some of the local clubs are a little bit anxious about their future with regard to the maintenance contract, and I hope we can soon alleviate their concerns. On the 15th of August, I was invited to unveil an info board in Barrack Road Memorial Gardens. Originally, the cemetery of the Bexhill Barracks in around 1798 to 1820, where soldiers and the families of soldiers from King George III's German Legion are laid to rest. It's a beautiful, peaceful garden, popular with youngsters and dog walkers. And I do commend, if you haven't discovered this little idyll of peace, I do recommend that you pop along and have a look. I was also pleased to be invited to join the Mayor of Bexhill on a part of her walk along the promenade at Bexhill to celebrate Bexhill Day. I listened to some great music along the prom and was stopped by several residents to ask what was going on. It seemed the residents need to learn a little bit more about Bexhill Day. When the Lancaster, flanked by a Spitfire and a Hurricane, flew low over the sea, the only sound you could hear were the engines as all the people around were silent. Later, I stood with the Mayor and members of the British Legion who dipped their flags in honour as the Lancaster appeared again, swooping from Beachy Head, low over the sea. It was magnificent. Something totally different on Monday, the 21st of August. My husband and I were guests of the ABF, the Soldiers' Charity, which is the Army's national charity, here for soldiers, past and present, and their families, for life. And this took place at the Brighton race meeting. Now, we travelled by train and bus, we were very green, but being complete novices, we had no idea how to place a bet. And we were grateful for some gentle guidance. And after some light flutters, we came home £1.90 up. And last Friday, on the 15th September, Ron and I were guests of the Heritage Railway Association and the Kent and East Sussex Railway. We were hauled by a, wait for this, Crompton Slimline Diesel loco, which used to run on the Charing Cross to Hastings line. And we travelled in a Wealdon Pullman car with the Mayor of Tenterden, Hugh Merriman MP, Lord Faulkner, Lord Snape and Viscount Stansgate, board members of the Kent and East Sussex Railway, as well as Steve Oates, the Chief Executive Officer, and Chris Austin, who has an OBE from HRA. We travelled through some lovely Kent and Sussex countryside, but of course Sussex is best. Councillor Proshak joined us at Bodiam, and we listened to the Rother Valley Heritage Trust CEO, Mike Hart, speak with great gratitude to Rother District Council for their support in progressing the line from Robertsbridge to Bodiam. It was an excellent occasion. Councillor Richard Thomas has represented us at events at both Folkestone and Sevenoaks, and we look forward to reading about them in the bulletin. Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Chair, I think I would like to thank Councillor Vicky Cook for instigating, organising and leading the civic service on Sunday, the service that I'm sure enhanced the reputation of this council, both within the district and beyond. So thank you, Vicky, for your initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Members, in accordance with paragraph 2.2a of the Council Procedure Rules, I will exercise my discretion as the Chair of the Council in favour of varying the order of business, so that agenda item 15 is taken next, followed by agenda items 6 and 7, and then I shall take agenda item 11. I'd also like to advise you that there is an additional agenda item, 16, to approve the appointment of 2 non-executive directors to the board of the Housing Company. Thank you. Okay, I have just been advised it's actually items 5 and 6 that we're taking after question time. Thank you. So moving on then to item 15, the petition debate. In accordance with the Council's petition scheme, to consider the petition submitted by the campaign group No to Northeye. Mr. Jacklin, under the Council's petition scheme, you have 5 minutes to present your petition. Please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Nigel Jacklin. My wife Sheila and I set up the No to Northeye campaign when we heard the Home Office proposals to use the site to house 1,200 male asylum seekers in March this year. I'm here to present our petition, signed by over 1,500 Rother residents, most signed in person on paper. The petition states, we demand Rother District Council oppose Northeye Asylum Seeker Centre proposals. We are asking you to do this both on behalf of local residents and as a point of principle of national importance. Before I give you some background, I would like to say a few words of thanks. First, to the people who helped get the signatures. Second, to everybody who signed the petition. We're sure we could have got many, many, many more. And third, thank you to Councillor Cook for encouraging us to engage with the democratic process, and to the CEO and members of Democratic Services for their help. We are aware that there may have been an objection to the petition being presented. We're pleased democracy has won the day. Many residents want Rother to make a formal statement of opposition to the plans. If the proposals are confirmed, we also see you as being best placed to take part in a legal challenge. So, background. The North Eye site will be known to many of you. Perhaps you worked on the development and site allocation plan back in 2018 or 2019. In the first half of 2022, residents were told that the site was to be used to house asylum seekers. This was dismissed as misinformation. In August of last year, an interesting LLP, a group of private investors, took ownership of the site. We believe it still remains in their hands. In March this year, we found out that the so-called misinformation was in fact true. We do not know who knew what when, but residents voiced their concerns immediately and in force. Illegal arrivals to the UK are a concern to many people here in Rother and across the UK. The government and the Home Office have failed to stop arrivals and to process applications in good time. These failures have led to the introduction of new emergency legislation, allowing the Home Office to ride roughshod over local planning and impose site use without consultation or due consideration. This is all wrong. The residents do not want it, the camp, and the majority don't want them, people who arrive illegally. And whilst we realise that these issues are not within your control, your reaction to the proposals are. You have acknowledged concerns but remained corporately silent. Residents simply want to know, do you oppose the proposals? Or do you want to take the money and build the camp, whether that be as a detention centre or as open accommodation? A detention centre may be less worse, and we urgently need measures which act as a deterrent. However, residents say, what's to stop it being used as an open centre in the future? Rother has a new administration. Can you restore people's trust in the authorities by saying no? So no to North Eye's first request on behalf of local residents is that, as a council, you publicly state your opposition to the proposals. And secondly, that you immediately set in train a means of representing residents' views. Our third request of national importance relates to the use of the new emergency legislation, which we encourage you to actively oppose. It is evident that the Home Office have no interest in local details, the everyday work of councils such as Rother. In effect, the Home Office are saying your work, for example, on the DSA and the protection of Pevensey levels, does not matter, and that allowing residents' voices to be heard in good time is not important. You must agree this is wrong. So no to North, I urge you to stand up on behalf of local councils across the country, oppose this new emergency legislation and stand up for true local democracy. RDC needs to ask residents' views now if you are to have them ready in time for the Braintree judicial review set for October the 31st, which hopefully you would participate in if the unfortunate decision is taken to go ahead with the proposals. So in summary, we demand that you bring an end to the silence and uncertainty. Say no to the Home Office proposals and the new emergency legislation. Make sure residents' voices are heard and acted on, and take legal action if the Home Office decides to go ahead. Thank you.
Other residents say refugees are welcome here.
Thank you, Mr. Jacklin. You may sit down. I'm going to ask Councillor Oliver, as leader of the Council to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Jacklin, for presenting your petition. And I know how hard your supporters have been working. Firstly, I would like to say that the Rother District understands and shares the concerns of local people about the potential impact on the community and local services if the North Eye site is used to accommodate asylum seekers. We are particularly aware of the impact of those residents who live in close proximity to the site. We have been working with local stakeholders to assess the potential impact on the local community and services. This has been a difficult task as the Home Office is still in the assessment stage. No decision has been made on the future of the North Eye site. There are still so many unanswered questions. But what we do know is that the sale of the site has not yet been completed. The survey work continues on site to understand what remedial works may be necessary. We know that the Home Office's original proposal for an open facility to accommodate up to 1,200 men is still being considered. And only last week the Home Office confirmed that they are now also exploring the use of the Bexhill site for detention purposes, and assessments are being undertaken to consider the feasibility. But as I said, there's an awful lot we still don't know. We don't know if the site will be used as a detained or non-detained facility, or even if it will be used at all. We do not know how many people will be accommodated. We do not know who will be accommodated. We do not know when work will begin on the site and how long it will take and what kind of accommodation will be built. We do not know if Rother District Council, as a local planning authority, will be determining any future planning application about the site. And we do not know how long the facility will be used for or what will happen to the site in the longer term. In the last few weeks, we have seen greater engagement from the Home Office with local stakeholders, and this is welcomed. We are assured that more information will be provided in multi-agency forums with key stakeholders, and we will continue to push for more information to be shared with the community and the direct engagement from the Home Office. It is important to remember this is a Home Office project, not a Rother District Council project. However, we do not know if or what role Rother District Council may be required to carry out in the future in relation to this site. To ensure members are not precluded from participating subsequently in any decision-making capacity, I would remind councillors of the guidance on predetermination. Members are advised to ensure that any statements they make cannot be misinterpreted or taken out of context. Make it clear that notwithstanding any initial comments you may wish to express, you retain an open mind and willingness to listen to all relevant considerations that may subsequently be presented to you. We do, of course, only have limited information in terms of the proposal for the site available at the present time. I would ask members to heed the advice in terms of any debate arising from the petition on this matter. We remain committed to seeking to ensure that any use of the site is lawful and acceptable, and that the views of the local community are heard by all bodies responsible for making decisions about the site. I would, Chair, like to present a motion that, one, the Council will use all its powers to press the Home Office to provide full details of precisely what it is proposing for the site. Two, the Council will press the Home Office to ensure that it engages fully with all stakeholders and attends all liaison meetings. The Council is fully committed to using all its powers to ensure that any use of the site is lawful and acceptable in planning terms, having regard to the local plan, national policy and other material planning considerations.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Bayliss.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor Oliver's motion. Let me start by saying that I'm keen to avoid being predetermined. I'm a member of the Planning Committee, and a planning application may or may not be forthcoming for consideration by the Planning Committee at some stage in the future. The Labour Party's opposition to using North Eye as an accommodation or detention centre is well known, but I am open-minded and will weigh up all the arguments for and against should the planning application be submitted by the Home Office. A priority for me will be to look at the impact of the proposal on the local community, especially as the land itself is designated for much needed housing and recreational facilities in the local plan. But at this point, I want to say what I do oppose. And I do oppose a government and a Home Office that on one hand wants to work with Rother District Council, but then withholds information and cancels meetings at the last minute. I do oppose an MP who promises to hold a public meeting, but doesn't, and then jumps the gun by making announcements which are not backed up by the very government he's supposed to be part of. And I very definitely oppose those who seek to prey on people's fears and advance a right-wing agenda. The sort of people who email me to suggest I should go and hang myself, want to stifle democracy and bring shame on our country. I urge colleagues, throughout this process, we must all remember the words of Joe Cox. We have more in common than divides us. And let's not hatred or bigotry overshadow the very real concerns about these proposals. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. I should have said just before I invited Councillor Oliver to speak that we have 15 minutes to debate this petition. My intention was to invite the leader to speak first, followed by group leaders. So thank you for leading us. Did you want to make a comment, Councillor Maynard?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that quite clearly this is a very emotive issue, and especially to residents that are very close, and indeed in the wider area, close to the former North Eye site. But I think that we on this side have been quite clear on our position. But as Councillor Oliver has alluded to, there are still so many details that are yet not confirmed. I would draw people's attention to the latest missive from both the Home Office and the MP. I'm not going to do what Councillor Bayliss has said and make some political statement this evening. I think that is inappropriate. I think what is appropriate is to have a measured approach to this particular issue, to not get emotive about this particular issue, but to, as Councillor Oliver has suggested, work with the stakeholders. And I don't particularly like that word stakeholders, because I think for the wider public, what does that actually mean? But it does mean working with all tiers of local government. It does mean working with the Home Office. It does mean working with the local MP. And at this point, I'll declare an interest, Madam Chairman, as an East Sussex County Councillor, as they may have an interest, obviously, in this as we go forward as well. But I think it is for us, as elected members, to listen to our residents, but to acknowledge that this issue is a much wider issue that affects us as a country, and make a measured response, and to avoid the kind of emotive stuff that we've seen on social media and indeed elsewhere in the national newspapers. I think it is something that quite clearly there will be differences of opinion, but in terms of how we react to this particular situation, it is about taking a sensible, measured approach, and that is what we will continue to do on this side of the chamber. And I welcome the comments that have been made by Councillor Oliver, and we will support the proposition as he's put in terms of the motion, so that hopefully we can have unanimity in this chamber moving forward in this matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maynard. Councillor Polly Gray, as leader of the Green Party, did you want to speak? Sorry, Councillor Field.
Sorry, yes, thank you. As Councillor Maynard has raised the matter, I need also to declare a personal interest as a member of East Sussex County Council.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Kirby-Green.
I do the same.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Green Group, I've
confirm that we fully support the motion put forward by Councillor Oliver. Mr Jacklin, thank you for putting your petition so clearly. I am also on the planning committee, so I need to be very careful not to state my personal views. However, I will say that Greens believe we should treat people fleeing war and persecution with compassion and should allow them to live with dignity and to contribute towards our society. We are appalled that some leading figures in the government are prepared to play politics with the issue of asylum seekers, apparently for electoral advantage. However, the petition before us tonight is not a Rother District Council issue. Any grievance should be directed to central government, as this is their decision and in their hands, not ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Sue Proshak as leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, and thank you to you for bringing this petition, because although it's not in our gift, it's something that clearly we are all concerned about. And today we've heard lots of facts and opinions about the future of the site known as North Eye. Let us focus again on what we know. The Home Office don't own the site, the Home Office have yet to tell us what their plans are, and the potential of the site is a Home Office project. As Councillor Oliver has said, it's not Rother's. And the MP has reported that the site is to be used as a detention centre. Now, Rother's plans for the site are detailed in this document. Whether the Home Office ever think about this sort of thing, I've no idea. But this is the document that actually says what Rother District Council are going to do with that site. It's designated for 140 dwellings with 30% affordable. It's described in this document as a very sensitive site. We knew that. Adjacent to the internationally designated ecological site of Pevensey Levels. A landscape study has already been done, concluding that high-quality development in appropriate landscaping will be acceptable, leaving the greenfield part of the site open and undeveloped. This is what we said we're going to do. The sloping nature of the site and the sensitivity of surrounding views will influence the scale of building, their height, quality and layout. This information is in the public domain and is factual, and our planning committee will be reading it very carefully, I hope. As Liberal Democrats, we exist to build and safeguard a fair, free and open society, and to uphold the law. If the Home Office is proposing to house new migrants who are automatically deemed illegal because they arrive by small boats, their rights are denied, contrary to international law and contrary to the United Nations Refugee Convention, which we are all signed up to. This government's Illegal Migration Act is itself illegal. The use of the site should be lawful, as Councillor Oliver has pointed out. And one last point. We are told it will take 45 days to process those in the detention centre. Now, here's my opinion. I see a lot of flying pigs. There are 172,000 plus asylum seekers awaiting judgment. 75% of those over 6 months. Being inhumane is a costly business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proshak. As we still have 5 minutes allowed for our debate, I'm going to ask Councillor Jimmy Stanger, would you like to speak as a ward member?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for your petition, Mr Jackson, and everyone that took part, and I understand the concerns of the residents since elected, prior to being elected, and on Bexhill Town Council before. It's a difficult topic, very hard, but as you understand, I'm also a member of the Planning Committee. If it does get to Planning Committee, I have to think about probity and planning, and we will support residents as much as we will, as a council, as a body, and we will resist when we're not being taken into consideration, etc., etc. But unfortunately, it's very difficult to make a yes or no decision immediately like this because of the different factors. But I just wanted to add that. Thank you for it.
Thank you, Councillor Stanger. Councillor Winter, did you wish to make a comment, please, and speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. For those members who are not aware or have not been following the North Eye saga since last May, I was the first elected official at the time to make the public aware of this situation. I was first informed about the potential use of North Eye back in May 2022 by a local North Eye resident who was told about the plans by a former employee of the UAE. I immediately spoke to the wider community on North Eye and we organised a residents' meeting on North Eye with over 30 residents in attendance. We discussed the plans, the immediate threat and the ways forward. This included the creation of a now hugely popular North Eye Facebook group. Back in 2022, following the initial meeting, there were no other councillors involved and none were willing to listen when I contacted them. Some councillors at the time said I was spreading rumours. I wish I was spreading rumours because I wouldn't be standing here today. We wouldn't have this petition. The residents of North Eye, Little Common and St Mark's wouldn't be living in fear, stress, anxious and so on. So I wish I was spreading rumours, but I wasn't. In May 2022, I emailed Hugh Merriman MP to make him aware of this situation. I also emailed various Rother councillors, East Sussex councillors, Bexhill Town councillors, Sussex Police, the MP, other MPs and ministers of government. I contacted over 30 people initially, including councillors and MPs, and with no luck and no new information coming forward after many months of investigation, the investigation slowed down. I continued to check the land registry every few months, including May, July, August, October and again in December 2022. Myself and a few other residents spotted the change in ownership to the Brockwell Group Bexhill and we investigated the owners. Fast forward to March 2023, the government officially announced what I and many others have been investigating for over 6 months. And with that in mind, myself and some of the North Eye residents immediately started to plan for the immediate future. This involved the very first protest outside the North Eye gates. Along with a few other local residents, I organised and created the posters which advertised the protest. This protest has been, and to date, the largest ever North Eye protest, with hundreds, with Bexhill News actually quoting 500, turning up, including multiple press members.
30 seconds.
Right, let's stick to the end then, shall we? To all residents who may be listening this evening, and as I have always done and will continue to do, you will have my full support, and as I'm not on the planning committee, you'll have my full support backing against these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winter. Councillor Clark.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of the planning committee, so I've got a bit more elbow room. I used to believe in local democracy, and the government will always tell you they also believe in it and believe supporting local authorities. Then surely the government should be seriously looking at a proposal and helping Robert to fund low-cost housing on this site. If that's what the local council got in their local plan, that is what the local council want, then the government should be seriously looking at that, because that is what is needed in Robert and Bexhill. Low-cost housing, we're desperate for it. So let's hope they will look at that, because that would be a solution, which I'll be happy with.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Oliver, would you like to represent your motion then, please? And we will take a vote on it.
The motion that the Council will use all its powers to press the Home Office to provide full details of precisely what it is proposing for the site. The Council will press the Home Office to ensure that it engages fully with all stakeholders and attends all liaison meetings. The Council is fully committed to using all its powers to ensure that any use of this site is lawful and acceptable in planning terms, having regard to the local plan, national policy and other material planning considerations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. So the motion has been set before us. It has been seconded by Councillor Bayliss. I now call for councillors to take a vote. Would you please indicate your support of this motion? That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, members. Okay, so moving on then to item 5, to answer questions from members of the public, if any, in accordance with paragraph 10 of the Council Procedure Rules. There's a time limit of 30 minutes. Question 1 is from Mr Jacklin to Councillor Oliver. Mr Jacklin, do you wish to read out your question in full?
Yes, hopefully I can remember it. I think it is, why hasn't Rother District Council opposed the Northside proposals? Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you very much, Mr Jacklin. Councillor Oliver, would you respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr Jacklin. I found that the answer to this question has been provided in the meeting, and therefore it would only be repeating what I've already said.
So, Mr Jacklin, did you wish to put a supplementary question in response to the answer Councillor Oliver has just given you?
Yes, please. I do believe that some of the unknowns that you referred to in the previous 15 minutes are actually knowns. I believe that in the judicial review disclosure, a Home Office email suggests that Northside would be used for a minimum of 5 years. I believe you also do know how local residents feel about it. And so whilst I do also believe that you know or expect it to be imposed on us through the use of emergency legislation, which means that your planning committee would be bypassed. And so in that respect, I would ask whether you could reconsider voting to oppose it.
Councillor Oliver.
Well, none of those questions you asked we know the answer to, I assure you. We do not know the answers to those questions that you have just posed then. And that's where we are at the moment. And it is exasperating for us to deal with uncertainty when Home Office cancel meetings, when they should have been at meetings with other representatives from East Sussex and various other larger sites, and they don't turn up. So we've asked these questions time and time again, but we don't get any answers. So I'm sorry I can't be more helpful than that, Mr Jacklin.
Quickly respond from having been to
No,
Scampton
I'm
and
afraid you
Wethersfield.
can only ask one further supplementary question.
Organise a
about that.
bonfire in a bakery.
That's the way our council runs. Thank you. Mr Jacklin, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting or you're welcome to leave. Thank you. So our second question tonight is from Mrs Blagrove, again to Councillor Oliver. Mrs Blagrove, would you like to ask your question in full?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Yes, I would, for the benefit of the people on the live stream. Thank you. My question was, RDC imposed a flat rate trial of £30 parking cost on the central car park at Canberra recently, without any consultation. The traders in that area have suffered significant financial losses because of the low footfall, mainly due to the cost to park at £30 for just even half an hour. This particular car park is the only one with flat access to the beach and is used by many disabled people. I know Councillor Timpey, the portfolio holder for tourism, said in her radio interview, we have made a mistake and we all have our hands up. I have today presented the petition I started regarding this issue, which asked that the charge be dropped to allow the traders to recoup their losses. The petition has 2,000 signatures from service users, residents and traders. My question to Councillor Oliver is, will you please confirm that this council will consult the public before carrying out any trials such as these and other projects that affect residents and traders in the future? As the leader of the council, do you have any message to convey to the traders and residents of Canberra? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Blagrove. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you very much, Mrs Blagrove, for putting your question together this evening. I would just sort of come back on that trials can be a very useful way of understanding the full impact of changes to services. It is important that the experiences of residents and businesses are considered, alongside with any other data collected when determining the extent of those services. into the future. The flat fee parking trial was a result of the wealth of historic public engagement between the council, residents, business owners and visitors to Camber, including comments and complaints received, feedback from the public meeting held on the 28th of July 2021, and the frequently asked questions submitted to the council in 2022 and circulated to all Camber residents via the Camber Parish newsletter in July 22. A consistent concern of residents has been the number of vehicles accessing the village, increasing antisocial parking and congestion, and extending the response time of emergency service vehicles. We have worked with our partners to address these concerns in a number of ways, included new and increased signage on the approach to the village and along the diversion route used by the central car park is full. Supporting the introduction of civil parking enforcement by East Sussex County Council, replacing a damaged post on verges, providing financial support to Sussex Police to provide additional police presence during the summer period, and working closely with our partners at CCAM to provide local ambulance support to beachgoers and residents. The flat fee parking rate was trialled for a 9-week period, the 3rd of July to the 1st of September inclusive, during the summer of 2023 to assess the impact on congestion and the number of vehicles accessing the village. With any trial, it is important to collate data and review over a period of time, and due to poor weather during July in particular, all of the car parks in Camber, and along the coast I'm sure, were quieter than they were in July 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Mrs Blagrove, would you like to ask a supplementary question relating to the answer that Councillor Oliver has given you?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you, Councillor Oliver, for your answer. Just one thing there to put in is that I haven't spoken to any trader at all in Camber that were aware of this, and it was really foisted on them all of a sudden. Nobody knew much about it, and that's why they were very angry. My question is, this trial has proved beyond doubt to have been detrimental not only to Camber traders, but also meant a big loss in revenue to RDC. Could you please confirm that in future, charges will remain on an hourly basis for that car park and not a flat rate charge, so that the traders don't have to worry about this happening again? I've seen so many people and heard so many people absolutely devastated because of what's happened. I know that a trial of any kind can go right or it can go wrong. This one, I don't think it was beneficial to anybody, and I would like to still ask you if you have any message to convey to the people of Camber and the traders of Camber that's always had a good relationship with RDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Blagrove. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that supplementary question. I fully appreciate the comments that you've made. We are undertaking a full review of what has taken place during this trial period. As for the feedback referred to in those dates, they were provided to me by officers, so I'm pretty convinced that they were, in fact, there. Yes, I think that the option that you mentioned with regard to a phased-in rate based on is one that would be considered. Everything will be considered, and officers are working on the data that we've recovered during the season. It was unfortunate that July was a very bad month, so we take that into account. There's also a cost of living crisis out there, which again may have impacted on things, but we are going to look at every possible part of it. It's important that we do for the benefit of our residents at Camber.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Thank you, Mrs Blagrove, for submitting your questions. You may remain for the rest of the meeting should you wish to, or otherwise you're free to leave. Moving on then, question 4. I beg your pardon. Question 3. Mr Bradford, you have a question for Councillor Timby. Would you like to ask or read out your question in full?
People can hear me. Yes, John Bradford, a resident in Camber, a visitor to Camber for 66 years. Was any consideration given that the 2 car parks in Old Lyd Road gave the only level access to the beach for disabled and those who needed it, and to the fact the steep dunes at Weston would prevent some people, if not many, getting access to the beach if unable to afford the fees at Old Lid Road car parks or climb the steep dunes.
Thank you for your question, Mr Bradford. Councillor Timpey.
Thank you, Chair. Have I got the right mic on? That one? Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr Bradford. The answer is obviously you've had the answer, but I'll read it out for the people who might be listening. Rother District Council does not have a policy of providing free off-street parking to all blue badge holders. Prior to the start of the trial, blue badge holders paid to park in all Canberra car parks. Many blue badge holders have chosen and continue to choose to park for free on the street if they are visiting for less than 3 hours. After receiving a complaint, decision was taken to offer free parking in our 9 disabled bays at Canberra Central and 4 disabled bays at Old Lid Road for the duration of the trial. Non-blue badge holders who choose to park at Western Car Park but do not wish to or are unable to walk over the dunes can access the beach at Central via a 0.4 mile walk along the pavement on Old Lid Road.
Thank you, Councillor Timpey. Mr Bradford, do you wish to put a supplementary question to Councillor Timpey
Yes,
arising out of the answer that you've just been given?
Yes, I'm ready for that. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to raise it. Councillor, am I to understand then from your answer that no consideration was given to the needs of the disabled and those who needed a level access, as you felt that the current policy for disabled was adequate and a pavement walk of 0.4 of a mile along a pavement which was parked with vehicles, and that was good enough for the disabled and older people? Or was your answer in a Kent radio interview as to whether the needs of the disabled had been considered? You answered, obviously not. Continuing, we have made a mistake and we all have our hands up. Is that the actual answer you meant to give me?
Thank you, Mr Bradford. I don't like my meeting being disrupted. That's not appropriate behaviour. Yes, it's not appropriate behaviour. Thank you. Councillor Timpey, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr Bradford, for your supplementary. I think that I have answered your question, and I was not part of any discussions that took place prior to this decision, so I believe that it has been answered.
Thank you, Councillor Timpey. Thank you, Mr Bradford, for submitting your question. You may remain for the rest of the meeting should you wish to. Otherwise, you're free to leave. Thank you. So question 4 then is from Mr Hyatt, again to Councillor Timpey. Mr Hyatt, would you like to read out your question in full?
Yes, thank you. My name's James Hyatt. I've been trading in Canberra since 1984, so yeah, 39 years. My questions to Councillor Timpey. Right, given that Rother District Council warned prior to implementing the trial of the highly likely financial damage it would have had on numerous businesses in Canberra, and having failed to consult with businesses beforehand, also failing to take out an impact assessment, is there a case, or would Rother District Council consider, out of goodwill, to offer compensation to the businesses in some form, maybe liking it to the grants in COVID? This has been far more damaging to our business than COVID. Some of those businesses, including ours, are now in a precarious position, and we've never previously experienced this in 39 years of trade in Canberra. Question 2. Sorry. It has been stated one of the reasons Rother District Council brought in the trial was to generate more funds to cover the upkeep of Canberra and not burden the taxpayer. Would it not have been better to carry out the work on the central car park overflow, Johnson's Field, for a combined cost of £20,000, as was quoted by a local builder? Can Rother District Council assure there will be an overflow up and running again for next season to give the businesses a much needed leg up? which, let's be fair, the central car park end needs, especially going on that the central car park only holds 160 vehicles compared to the western end's 1,400 vehicles. Question 3. As soon as it was apparent the trial wasn't working and causing vast financial damage to businesses and being counterproductive in every other aspect, would we have to wonder why Rotherham District Council decided to persevere with the trial by proceeding with it? It's caused speculation between businesses and villagers alike that there is a possible ulterior motive. I mean, was it done purposely to dishearten the businesses, maybe financially damaged on purpose? It's a valid and concerning view to hold, given that Rotherham District Council plans to tender out a cafeteria of sorts to be built within a proposed new toilet block in Central Car Park. Can Rotherham District Council assure us this is not the case? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hyatt. Councillor Timpey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Hyatt. You've had the answer, which is really rather long, and I'm happy to read it. The Council is not in a position to compensate businesses for loss of income during the 2023 season, as there are many factors that can impact seasonal businesses, and the cost of parking is just one element. The businesses in the centre of Canberra do not only rely on those parking in Canberra Central and Old Dead Road car parks for custom. Local residents, holiday park visitors and those staying in the village and walking to the beach all contribute, as do those who park elsewhere and walk to these facilities. 2023 saw the 6th wettest July on record, and this had a direct impact on the number of day trippers visiting Canberra. During the trial period, 27 days were recorded by on-site coastal staff as wet, overcast and windy. Coastal officers forecast each day at Canberra as red, amber or green, assessing likely visitor numbers and resource requirements depending on weather conditions, and Canberra did not experience any red days during this trial period. There were 8 red days during the same period in 2022. As noted, one of the reasons the Council brought in the trial was to ensure visitors make an appropriate contribution to the ever-increasing cost of running the beach. Rotherham District Council does not own Johnson's Field. We have a lease arrangement with East Sussex Council whereby we have shared any profits from parking on the site in previous years. Both the revetment and the surface require significant investment and repair if Johnson's Field is to be used in the future. Whilst we appreciate the local builder's estimate of £20,000, contractors who have assessed the site on behalf of East Sussex County Council and Rotherham estimate the work will cost significantly more. At this time, neither council has the available funds to invest in this scheme. However, this will be kept under review. As previously outlined with any trial, it is important to collate data and review over a period of time. The Council's motives for the trial were transparent, to attempt to reduce congestion and to ensure visitors were fairly contributing to the costs of running the beach. There was not and is not any ulterior motive to financially damage the existing businesses. The Council will continue to look into options for meeting these objectives, but there is no straightforward answer. A common question from residents asks why the Council does not close the road to all except residents when Canberra is full. East Sussex County Council is the Highways Authority. However, they advise that there is no ability under the Highways Act to restrict certain vehicles from the public highway. The police are not authorised to close roads other than in an emergency, such as a road traffic accident. Rotherham District Council is not a highways authority and as such has no powers to close roads due to congestion. The other most frequently suggested solution is for the Council to offer a park and ride scheme. Unfortunately, this is not a cost-effective solution at present. The council would need to hire vehicles and pay for drivers throughout the season and rent a suitable parking site. The cost of using the scheme would need to be low enough to entice visitors who often wish to park as close to the destination as possible and usually bring additional items such as windbreaks, inflatables, toys and food and drink with them to use on the beach. Unless coupled with a road closure, it is likely that these buses would simply add to the congestion on the busy days and be running empty or near empty at other times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timpey. Mr Hyatt, do you wish to put a supplementary question to Councillor Timpey arising out of the answers she has given you?
Yes, please. Yeah. As I understand your answer, you feel that the weather, in addition to the parking policy, could have contributed to the smaller numbers visiting Canberra, whereas it was reported in Dymchurch, Winchelsea Beach and other resorts were still very busy. Could I therefore ask that on the days Olded Road car parks were full, do you know that the percentage of spaces were paid for according to Rother District Council and the Ringo records? Only when the fees returned to normal on the 2nd of September wardens were present and they were issuing penalty notices. Does this not demonstrate people were taking the chance of getting away with it, and more so at the higher rate? Am I right in assuming that then the revenue is seriously down and consequently visitors have been contributing in any significant way to paying towards Rother District Council's costs, which was the intention?
Thank you. Councillor Timpey.
Thank you, Mr Hyatt. I don't have any figures for you, but I can certainly get some. I'll ask at this meeting if I can do that. For the officer will get them for you so that we can give you some data that you require. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timpey. So thank you, Mr Hyatt, for bringing this to our attention. You may also remain for the rest of the meeting should you wish to. Otherwise, you're free to leave. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Much appreciated. Okay, moving on then to question 5. This is a question from Mr Brown to Councillor Oliver. Mr Brown, would you like to read your question out in full?
I would indeed, please, Madam Chairman. This question concerns the performance of Rother District Council in matters for which the Council is directly responsible in regard to its 100% ownership of Rother DC Housing Company Limited. The question is not one for the company. The question is put to RDC as the corporate body being the principal party to the shareholder agreement and the corporate body registered at Companies House as the person of significant control. The leader is now asked to confirm that the Council, as required under the terms of the shareholder agreement, and the Council in its performance of the duties as the corporate body designated as a person of significant control, has significantly failed in its specific responsibilities of governance. Will the leader confirm this failure manifests itself through the breaches of the Companies Act in terms of registering directors of the company, the failure to remove directors on ceasing to be elected members of RDC, the failure to comply with the terms of the shareholder agreement in the appointment of external directors to the company, the failure to prevent board meetings which were by default not quorate, the failure to comply with other duties defined in the shareholders' agreement, the failure to ensure a service level agreement is in place between RDC and the housing company, and the failure to ensure a formal financial agreement covering advances up to £4 million by Rother District Council to the housing company is in place. Will you precisely identify what steps are being taken to rectify these ongoing issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Brown. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr Brown. It's nice to see you. I trust you're in better health than we were last time we met, so I wish you well. Yes, I do welcome your question, and I've recently provided a detailed response to you following the receipt of a letter from you at the beginning of August. I'm sorry that it was delayed such a long time, but we did get caught up with holidays for key officers to complete that reply. The letter included a number of questions relating to the Council's governance of Rother District Housing Company Limited, and these are restated within the public question Mr Brown has submitted. In my response to this letter, I've acknowledged some administrative points of learning relating to the governance of the company. I acknowledge that these are again here, and we are grateful to Mr Brown for bringing these matters to our attention. We continue to work with our legal advisors to continuously improve the Council's arrangements for governing the company. The Council's internal audit team has undertaken a review of the Council's governance of the company, and a report will be forthcoming to the Audit and Standards Committee later in the year. The report will follow two earlier update reports presented to the Audit and Standards Committee during 2022. I personally welcome the opportunity to meet with Mr Brown in order to demonstrate in more detail the governance arrangements and specialist legal counsel that the Council has in place in order to oversee the activity of the housing company effectively.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Mr Brown, did you wish to ask a supplementary question relating to the answer that Councillor Oliver has just
I would,
given?
Madam Chairman, but could I first of all just say I want to add my congratulations to the civic service at St Mary's yesterday. I thought it was a wonderful example of how councillors should be representing themselves to the public. Turning to Councillor Officer's reply, I thank him for his response and the answers he previously provided. I'd recommend all officers and councillors to read up on a document called Just Culture. And this is a policy document adopted by the airline industry where the objective of the exercise is to correct errors without going to a blame culture. But accountability is absolutely essential for improving processes going forward. I remain unconvinced that the full recognition is made of some of the very serious government errors which have been made. However, I am hopeful that the acknowledgement given by the leader that lessons have needed to be learned really sets the pathway to better governance. Tonight's item on external directors is overdue and an example of past problems. The exchanges between myself and the leader of the chairman of the chairman of the housing company have been continuously courteous, and I publicly welcome the opportunity to meet with them on these matters. The development of Blackfriars is of particular import to me, just as is the governance and vital financial crime of the £80 million project. My supplementary question. I would ask the leader if he can advise when the service level agreement between the council and the company will cease to be a plan and become a reality. And in addition to input from internal audit, may I ask that he and his officers discuss some of these matters specifically with the external auditors to ensure forward-facing governance and financial control truly become the norm and the mistakes of the past are not repeated. Reports have said the Blackfriars project needs to regain viability. The repetition of mistakes is not an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Brown, for breaking those points, and I will assure you that they will be attended to, and we'll get back to you with a more detailed reply. And I hope there will be an occasion quite soon where we can actually meet with the chair of the housing company and myself and any relevant officers in order to be able to elucidate the responses to your question.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Before we move on, is there anybody in this room who has a Jeep registration P for Papa, K for Kilo, 18, B for... I'm sorry, Mr. Jacklin. We need to ask you to move it, please. Thank you very much. Item 6 on our agenda, to answer questions from members of the Council, if any, in accordance with paragraph 11 of the Council Procedure Rules. Do we have any questions from members? There are none, thank you. So moving on then to item 11, we have a presentation from Stuart Drew, the Chief Executive Officer of the Delaware Pavilion. Welcome, Stuart. It's lovely to see you, and we're looking forward to you presenting the Delaware Pavilion's annual update to members. Thank you. Councillor Proshak.
Redeclare my interest as a member of the panel, of the board.
Thank you very much. Councillor Timpey.
Redeclare.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Drew, please do start.
It's no problem. I haven't got quite such a big crowd now, which is slightly disappointing. But thank you. It's lovely to see you all, and thank you for inviting me. It's very good once a year just to update you on what we've been up to at the Pavilion and the impact on Rother and the wider region as well. So thank you. It's really appreciated, and of course thank you for your ongoing support. I'm going to do next slide, please, to Lisa. Thank you. As you've said, I'm Stuart Drew. I'm Chief Executive and Director of the Delaware Pavilion. I've been there for a little while and been working on various projects and also working on other things within the region. It's a good place to... We can go on to that slide, Lisa. Yes, please, to the next slide. A good place to start is actually just a quick conversation about 1066 country. I'd like to say, actually, congratulations to officers both here at Rother and at Wealdon, and indeed to some of the officers at Hastings as well, for very much working together to transfer 1066 over to Rother District Council's control. And I'm very pleased to continue to be chair to oversee that transition. It's really critical. We've heard a little bit about tourism tonight and the impact of tourism, and indeed some of the struggles as some businesses deal with recovery from COVID still and the cost of living crisis, which I myself will talk a little bit about later on. So it's really important that we continue to be very proactive with tourism, and indeed the transferal to Rother is a really amazing opportunity to develop the business model for 1066 going forward. So exciting times. As you will have noticed, there's been a really amazing campaign running throughout railway stations and on the underground. If you go to the next slide, please, Lisa. Across the underground network. So there's been a number of campaigns working across East Sussex as we go through. And it's really brilliant to be highlighting the key destinations across the region, Bexhill, Battle, Rye, etc., Hurstman Zoo into Wealdon. And that campaign has been really well received, and we'll be doing an evaluation on that campaign as we go forward. But it's been very high profile, really, to drive that footfall. Next slide, please, Lisa. Thank you. And then moving on, it's been an exciting few weeks. We're just in the build-up to Turner Prize in Eastbourne. Turner Prize might be in Eastbourne, but we're all working very closely together to maximise the impact. So just recently, there's been big events in New Haven. There's been Charleston have just opened a new site in Lewes. And we've been working very closely. We're opening new exhibitions here shortly in Bexhill. But very much on the next slide, Lisa, please. Sorry, we've got slightly out of sync. is running campaigns, and this is a Sussex Modern campaign. So Sussex Modern's been working right across the region to help move those visitors to the Turner Prize and all the other activity that is going on right around the region. In response, we've been developing our brand as well. You'll see it's a little subtle as we've gone across the summer and into the autumn, but very much working with local copywriters. Very nice to be working with copywriters who are based on just next door to the pavilion, but that are really amazing copywriters to help us develop the brand, to make it stand out, to make it friendly to all our users. And then, Lisa, if we go on to the next slide, to be developing, again, rail campaigns to be at Victoria Station, and then working with Rotherham with the development of the Coastal Cultural Trail with a campaign that you would have seen launch across the last few days, which is called Eastbound from Eastbourne, which is directly looking to move traffic from the Turner Prize right here and to Flatlands and to Beeching Road, and working with Blackshed and other partners as well in Roberts Bridge. So it's a very big concerted campaign to just make the most of that. Next slide, please, Lisa. One of the other things I do is chair the music service, and I thought it was probably good to just highlight that. We've been doing so much work with music over the years, and it's really fantastic. Brighton Dome, Brighton Festival took over the music service just as we went into the pandemic. So we've got Brighton Dome running the music service and then myself chairing it. So we're almost bookends across the region. Really big impacts. There was huge impact to the music service, as part of that merger, so they took over the East Sussex work, but then, of course, from the pandemic. But you'll see from my report and the numbers on screen that education in musical instruments and singing is really starting to take hold again and really starting to grow. I was just at the Pelham in Sidley this afternoon. It's really brilliant that the basement at the Pelham is going to be used as a music centre run by Create Music. Of course, St Richard's is also a music centre as well for the wider region too. So there's lots going on there. And indeed, the DFE have asked us to look after West Sussex music as well. So there will be a Sussex-wide service in the coming months as well, which is very exciting. Next slide, please. I mentioned a little bit about us. We're about to open a major exhibition by a modernist called Helio Oitacika, who was very influential with people like Andy Warhol, predecessor to Andy Warhol, in terms of the art scene. Rather wonderful, fun maze. Labyrinth is going in the ground floor gallery, but across both floors. There's lots and lots of press interest in this, so hopefully we will receive lots of national press off the back of this exhibition, as well as it being very accessible and fun for our audiences as well, and to complement that other activity that I was talking about. Next slide, please. So also to talk about young people and skills, we were very fortunate. This is the rather wonderful Kim Byford, who joined us from Bexhill College. I'm afraid to steal her off Bexhill College, but we're incredibly lucky, has been running our skills programmes. Again, right across the region, developing apprenticeships, work experience. You can see the numbers in the report. It's only been running a year and already it's reached 3,000 participants in the programme. And for instance, we've also been providing work experience opportunities around the Turner Prize as well. So those numbers will really grow and be really coordinated. This is very exciting. We're just going into our second year. And indeed, there's lots of opportunities. We'll be running apprenticeship programme with Glyndebourne and Eastbourne Theatres and Brighton Dome and other partners to try and train people into being venue technicians. So lots of opportunities there to grow apprenticeship numbers. And then this is our Young Creatives programme, the Blueprint Collective. Been very key. There's two elements of this. Young young people from Bexhill, but also a young refugee group as well. You will see the rather wonderful mural on our rooftop that's been created by young refugees and young talent. So very much trying to support young people from various backgrounds. Please. Before I go on to talk a little bit about levelling up, just to draw your attention in terms of young people, last year we worked with over 8,000 young people as part. So that's in addition to the 3,000 in terms of the skills programme. So big impacts there right across the board of really engaging with schools and running things like EDI programmes in schools as well. So it's been very impactful. And moves us nicely on to the Levelling Up programme. Really delighted to be working with Rother in securing that money both for Bexhill Central and for Sidley as well. Thank you to the team for all their amazing support in getting that securing that funding, and then getting the project initiated. The Sidley project is moving along quite fast, and I know that will probably come slightly ahead of the Pavilion project. We're just in the process of procuring architects for the Pavilion scheme. And so I haven't got a lot to say right at the moment, but just to say we're working very quickly on that and with a range of partners, and we'll start to see that project move forward as we go forward. But of course you will know that that's based around community, creativity and the skills of our community in some of those areas of higher deprivation. It's very exciting. Next slide, please. It's just worth mentioning, just in terms of Sidley, of course we've been working with Sidley for a long time. This is a group of All Saints school children in the gallery. And if you go on to the next slide, Lisa, just some of the fun we had with Councillor Coleman and some of the other at the Sidley Fun Day as well. And also completing consultation for the projects as well, for Levelling Up projects as well. So it was real fun, but really great to be working with that community and the potential of that Sidley Rec project. I don't know how well you can read this, but just a little bit of kind of reality check. Lots of colourful and bright and positive things to say. Just a bit of a check-in on energy costs that are, I'm sure, are affecting us all. These are 2019 versus 2023 energy costs. One is just under £100,000. The other one is just under £400,000 for the pavilion. We're waiting to go into the laser procurement scheme, of which we've had to join the queue to join the laser scheme. But those are just some of the challenges that we're facing, including the rising cost of staff, pay inflation, but also a lack of pay flexibility as well with the workforce as well. That's really adding to the cost. So we're really working hard. We've got a very strong board and a lot of expertise around the board, which I'm really pleased about. But it's just a bit of a juggle managing those kinds of things. And if we go into the next slide, it also impacts things like this. So we know that there's both sides of that equation. I wouldn't normally bring you the price of coffee to a council meeting, but it's just really interesting. Also talking to lots of other traders in the town, where there's a perception that hospitality is ripping customers off, but actually they're really struggling to find the margins there with energy and cost of staff. So that's really affecting across the board, and I think it's really good everybody's working together to try and communicate and work together, but nonetheless it is a challenge, and nonetheless you will say, how much is a cup of coffee at the pavilion? And you will understand why and why it's so expensive elsewhere as well. For some reason we've all got used to our supermarket shops, whether they're in Aldi or Waitrose or wherever they are, of those rising costs, but they're still very expensive, aren't they? Last slide, Lisa. And then just to say, we were really lucky having cancelled Joe Wiley in July because of the 50-mile-an-hour winds. which was very challenging for us at the last minute. It was really amazing that we caught that Saturday of the last days of summer, and there was 2,000 odd people out there, mostly having fun and having a really great time. It was a really good party. Thank you to all our supporters and ticket buyers for continuing to support us. Thank you. Really happy. As I say, the main details, a very detailed report. Really happy to take any questions from the report or the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. I'd like to call now on Councillor Oliver, because he's going to propose or move that the Council Procedure Rules 15.4 be waived.
Oh, right. I beg your pardon. I may not have quite spotted that somewhere, but obviously that's what I'm doing, so please excuse me. But I would also, given the fact that that's what I was supposed to be saying, I would also just like to add, I'm actually amazed at the whole range of activities that go on at the Delaware. It never ceases to amaze me, the work that goes in, the creative skills of your staff, ably led by yourself, Stuart. I always say you're a very safe pair of hands, but I think it's a wonderful, it's just a wonderful facility for us to have here in Rother, because it does bring a lot of people in. So have I got to say something else?
You need to move that Council Procedure Rules 15.4.
Oh, I found it now. Yes, I have. Yes. I will now move the Council Procedure Rules 15.4, content and length of speeches, and 15.5, where a member may speak again, be waived for the discussion of this item.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Proshak?
I promise
All
I
in
won't say
favour?
anything. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Any? Mr. Biggs? Councillor Biggs? Content? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a question, really, if I may, to Mr. Drew. May I face Mr. Drew? Yes. Right. Thank you. You highlighted the huge rise in the cost of electricity, and it says in your report that your carbon footprint is 260 tonnes. I wondered what you were doing. I presume that's a bit of a catalyst. What you're doing to get this down?
Am I okay to reply?
Please do.
So, firstly, I'm really pleased you'll note from the paperwork that we have what's called a DEC rating of C, which I'm immensely proud of, given the age of the building and the structure of the building. And we've just been working our way through, for instance, lighting and most of the stage equipment. There's been a lot of investment in the stage equipment to move to LED and to more efficient appliances, as it were, to try and bring that down. The amount of the carbon footprint or the amount of CO2 varies depending on the footfall, and particularly in that year, the footfall is slightly down. It's quite a lot down still from COVID. There's still an amount of recovery. So that's the context, and that's where we've been working. In direct answer to your question, of course, the Levelling Up programme and the capital investment in the building is a huge opportunity, and we align ourselves with Rother District Council in your ambitions to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we've already done an initial review of systems, and as the technical specifications for the pavilion develop, so will the environmental programme for the pavilion develop too. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I moved to Bexhill exactly 50 years ago last week, and straight away I was told about the Delaware Pavilion, wonderful asset it was, and over the years I've attended events every year. When I first came here, I asked, we don't seem to have a lot of high-profile events, and I was told, well, we are squeezed between Hastings and Eastbourne. Our times have changed. I think now the Delaware leads, and others follow, because the amazing acts that are able to put on now is absolutely incredible. I mean, I attended that last disco. I went home absolutely worn out. It was actually a brilliant evening. I've attended fashion shows there, wonderful fashion shows. And of course, the other aspect is the economic advantages that the Delaware gives to Rotherham and Bexhill. It's incredible. Stuart and I met a few years ago, and I said, you don't do enough for the young people in school holidays. Straight away, you address that and put on extra events. There's such a listening body in the body at the Delaware. They embrace everything. They do so much. And we really should be very proud. And actually, I think it's around about £10 or £12 per head, per household for the Delaware. What a bargain. Fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I've got Councillor Stanger, then Councillor Coleman.
Mr. Drew, just to say thank you for everything you're doing, and I've attended quite a few events, and I'm a governor at All Saints School in Sidley as well, so we've known that the kids have benefited, especially being in, as Sam would say, from an area of deprivation and maybe not being exposed to the different creative arts and stuff like that, which is really good. And Bexfest, which is obviously a local artist that's from Bexhill, that's great, and it's doing really well year on year. And Diversified, well, when I was moved to Bexhill when I was 13 maybe, it was very much, I'd see as the older demographic, but it's definitely changing and hopefully it'll continue that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Coleman, can I just ask you a quick question, please? In that photograph we were shown, were you in the high-vis jacket or were you dressed in the teddy bear suit?
I was neither Sid, the Sidley butterfly, nor was I the wonderful Tanya from Heart of Sidley. In fact, I don't think I was in that photo because you would have seen me. I had a pink octopus on my head. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to say thank you for that, Stuart. Of course, I've spoken before about sort of my connection to the arts and to the Delaware and things like that. I always have an automatic connection with me. But actually today I wanted to commend the Delaware for your recent equality, diversity and inclusion work, redoing your strategy and all of the work you're doing with that. I think is really important. And your whole ethos around lifting up unheard voices. I think it's very much needed, especially in these times when there are a few loud voices trying to spread hatred and division. I think it's really important that organisations like the Delaware, like this council and other organisations are bold, inclusive, progressive and stand forward and say that actually all people are equal and all people deserve to be heard and represented. And I think that's really important, specifically your work with young people, your recent support for Hastings Trans Pride, and your work amplifying queer voices in the community, and of course your wonderful work with refugees. I think it's really inspiring to see such a force for good right there on slap bang in the middle of Bexhill Seafront. And also, of course, I have to mention the wonderful Shabalala Self sculpture that stood proudly on Bexhill Seafront. I've heard so many stories from members of this community who, until they saw that statue, hadn't felt seen in Bexhill. And I think that's a really important thing that always sticks with me. Particularly one conversation I had with Councillor Drayton, actually, who's not here tonight, who drives the community bus, and he'd had a resident get onto the bus and say, wow, I didn't expect to see that in Bexhill, and that's made my day. And I think that's really a really important message to take away. And actually, just showing everyone a confident black woman can take up space in Bexhill-on-Sea proudly, without being ashamed, without hiding away. I think that just in itself is an incredible moment, and hopefully will be a moment in the town's history. And indeed, whilst there are some who obviously had problems with that, the overwhelming support from the community, from local councillors and from all sorts of people across Rother and beyond who came to clean up that statue just shows that really the community is behind you with this. The community is behind Rother with this. The community is behind equality, diversity and inclusion. And as the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Wellbeing and Equalities, I hope that the work I can do can be even just a little bit as good as the work that Delaware has done on this matter, because it really has been incredible to behold. And also, finally, I just wanted to say, I really look forward to working with you more, Stuart, as we build that incredible community hub in Sidley and make a further connection with the Delaware, because the work you do in All Saints and other places is really valuable to our local young people. I've always spoken about, young people from poorer backgrounds often feel like they're excluded from the arts and that the arts isn't for them. And I think that's always a crying shame. And so the fact that you're in our community helping those young people realise actually they may not be a writer or a lawyer or a chef. They could if they wanted to be. They might be a painter or an actor or, God forbid, a musician. So thank you very much, Stuart, and keep going.
Thank you. Before I call on Councillor Sue Burton to speak, it's just occurred to me, I'm melting up here, and I'm sure a lot of you are. So, members, I give you permission to remove your jackets if you wish to. Councillor Sue Burton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I turn to Mr. Drew? Thank you. Well, I'm impressed. I echo everybody's comments. I've got a few little points to make, which I hope will be relevant and useful. I'm a rural Rother Battle councillor, and I noticed that only 4 primary schools came from rural Rother. And it's so, in your report, it's so important to get the children to the Delaware. They'll go home and they'll talk to their families, because in the outskirts, particularly outside Bexhill, they're not so familiar with the fantastic facility that offers so much to everybody. So I point that out to you. You mentioned, and my colleague, Councillor Field, mentioned about the 260 tonnes of emissions. Is this the first year that you've recorded it, or can we wait next year for looking at improvements and changes? You don't need to answer now, but comparative is really important. The one thing on your environmental report on page 30, I was very surprised you didn't have your catering facilities in there. You do a great job. It's china cups, the jugs with milk for people to pour their own, etc. So there are lots of positives, but I hope you'll continue to work on reducing meat in your diet, and also linking in with maybe your outside caterers so that they are aware of your ethos of what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. I've got Councillor McCork next, and then Councillor Bayliss and Councillor Byrne.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for a wonderful report.
Sorry, could you stand? Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks for a wonderful report. Just to acknowledge also, as a member for Ryan Winchelsea, one of the members for Ryan Winchelsea, what an asset the Delaware is for our region of Rother as a whole. It's a lot of money, and it's a great amount of money that you've had to invest. And Ryan Winchelsea, that area, we're really fortunate in having a lively and vibrant music scene. We've got a great jazz and blues festival. We've just had wonderful arts festival. I was at a fantastic gig Friday night. Martin Simpson, someone with an international profile in Rye, fantastic. And my query, just wonder how much of the impact from Delaware as a centre for culture, and also, as Councillor Coleman was pointing out, as a force for inspiring diversity and inclusion in our area, do you think will be felt in the wider region? I mean, obviously, I'm talking about Rye and Winchelsea in particular. We would love to benefit from some of that, the wonderful things that you have going on more around Delaware. How is there a possibility of outreach to other parts of you mentioned the effect of the cultural programme and the music programme across the county, and I just wondered if you had any insight into that, either currently or in future, how that might be felt and shared around the county. Thank you.
Please respond, Mr. Drew.
Thank you. Thank you for the great question. Just to say that the many activities that I'm involved with and what I tried to do with the presentation rather than the report was to illustrate that we're really working right across the region. Indeed, one of the reasons that we have the outdoor stage and that setup that we used for Joe Wiley was indeed to support Ian Bowden and Rye Jazz during the pandemic, and work very closely with him during the pandemic to ensure that he could remain solvent and continue to run his business and do the brilliant work that he does in Rye. We've also spent a lot of time in Rye engaging with Rye with 1066 Country, somewhat fragmented, particularly from the visitor offer coordination in Rye some years ago, and working very closely with Sarah Broadbent as at the Chamber of Commerce there, who's a board member of 1066, in order to get that right. And I regularly go to Rye to have meetings and to be seen in Rye. So I think the opportunity, what I like to do with the investment, both from yourselves and from Arts Council England, is to make sure that we give the best possible impact across the region and further afield too. And I think if we've got willing partners, then we're also always happy to work in partnership wherever we can to extend that reach. And the same goes for the rural schools as well, for example. Thank you.
Be careful what you wish for. I can see you being very busy in the years ahead. Councillor Bayliss.
Yes, thank you very much. And I speak as the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Economic Development. And I'd like to reiterate the members that have spoken already about the support for the economy, the local economy in Rother and especially Bexhill. I put a post on my Facebook page about a week ago to say that I was looking forward to Stuart's presentation tonight, and it was interesting. We got people coming and commenting on that from the local business community that say actually the amount of business that is drawn into Bexhill itself because of the pavilion, pays, if you like, for the subsidy that we're giving. I mean, I would just like to say there's a range of activities. I know that there are some people who don't always appreciate the benefits of the pavilion, but I do say there is something for everybody. There's something going on for everyone all the time. And I would like to just highlight the skills fair, which I know that you've been a driving force with an absolutely amazing event. I took part for the first time this year working on skills. The choir event that we held there for volunteers, and I know that work has been taken forward, and it's also been taken forward into Sidley. It is just absolutely amazing, the top class acts. And I noticed there's a Facebook page in Hastings, and I noticed somebody wrote about a couple of months ago, why can't we get the sort of acts at the White Rock Pavilion that they get at the Delaware Pavilion? And I thought, well, yes, that is exactly what we want. My sort of question to you is around a project that we've worked on together, which is around buses. Stuart has been really, really helpful in terms of providing the sort of basis or the case, if you like, for evening bus services that run down from Pebsham and run down from Sidley through the town centre and onto Hastings and back again. He will know that we've been doing promotion on that, and I just wondered how he felt we could carry that forward, because whilst we got 2 years of funding from the government's Bus Back Better campaign, that will run out. So it's about making sure that we really embed those bus services in the next 2 years so that they are commercially viable and carry on. So that would be my question.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Do you wish to respond to that, Mr. Drew?
I'm really pleased about that question, Christine, because it just gives me an opportunity, firstly, just to say a huge thank you to the team at the Pavilion. It's of course not just me, and it's working together with you and other partners to really make this happen. And I just wanted to say thank you to Sally, who's in the audience behind us as well, who's particularly led on the EDI work, which has been massively impactful, thanks to Councillor Coleman for his comments. So a thank you. One of the reasons I mention the staff is because we just have lost some members of our fundraising team. One of the reasons that we've lost them, in fact, it was ironic on her leaving drinks. There was no buses to get home, and the trains were on strike. And I had to give her a lift. Luckily, I hadn't had anything to drink, and I could give her a lift home. But that is slightly systematic of the environment that we're working in. and the potential opportunity going forward. So the extension to the bus services is massive, is really huge for our team. High proportion of our team are from the local area, including our head of exhibitions, who was brought up in Bexhill. So the buses and the continuation of the buses is really important. We have a very good relationship with Hugh Merriman, who of course is our rail minister, and we've got to work really hard to get those trains sorted because it's been going on for a long time, and has a significant impact on our business. So the transport is really important to the prosperity, not only of Bexhill, but of the wider region too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sure we'd all benefit and appreciate your promotion of a late night bus service to get, residents to come to attend your functions and to get home afterwards. That would be really wonderful. I have Councillor Terry Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. May I address Councillor Mr. Drew Stewart? My comments really follow on exactly from what we've just been talking about. You're saying your numbers haven't quite got back to pre-COVID, and it looks as if late night coming and going, the ability of audience to get to you and then get back is a problem. Now, it strikes me that we had recently a proposition from someone that they might think about building a hotel in Bexhill. And this is the problem. We don't have enough readily available overnight accommodation. So I think there's a market going begging there for someone who wants to open a hotel. Look, you will almost have guaranteed room occupancy because look what you're just near. You're near the Dilwar, and that's. So I think all the great things we've said about the arts, great. Let's try and get to the business community and say, hey, there's an opportunity here, and you are sitting in the middle of that, and you could potentially be a revenue earner for other businesses who want to provide either transport or overnight accommodation. The other thing I would like to say is your art exhibitions. As you know, I attend every one of them. And some, absolutely wonderful. Others, really? But I have never, ever heard anyone say, it's always an emotional reaction. So you must be doing it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Do you wish to respond to that, Mr. Drew?
Yes, if we have time. Just to say briefly, it was identified in 2007 that we needed to improve transport and build a hotel, and I am at anybody's disposal. In fact, our vice chair was a board member of Whitbread, who owned Premier Inn. So we've had some very good connections, but unfortunately not quite got there. But I hope that we will. I think there's still big potential. It's very interesting with Turner Prize in Eastbourne that actually the quality, although Eastbourne has lots of hotel rooms, actually the quality of the hotel rooms is rather lacking. They've got the volume but not the quality. And so there's a similar conversation going on over there, although we could just do with some rooms to service that. So that, again, there's a big potential there. And to look at circulation around the town, to try and avoid people just being based on the seafront, but also circulating around the town with transport or hotel as well. So I think in this next phase, and hopefully as a result of the Levelling Up funding, we can work on those strategies and try and improve the impact and encourage some investors too. I think that'd be amazing.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask Stuart Drew a little bit more about music as a long-term supporter of the Sussex Youth Orchestra. I just wonder how you reach out to the smaller music festivals and the work that Warren Hall is doing in terms of attracting concert audiences. And I underline the problem that Terry Byrne has already underlined, which is one of the difficulties of getting the rural areas to take the Delaware a little more into their hearts is the lack of transport north-south to actually bring potential audiences in. And I don't know what we can do about that, but working with East Sussex Council, who've now got this huge sum to invest in bus services, have innovated with the FlexiBus. Can we find ways of running buses to actually bring people in to concerts at the Delaware? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Drew?
Yeah, just very briefly, there's two elements to the music service. There's the teaching in schools and private tuition with music. And then there's also what's called the Music Hub, which is a coalition of lots of different music organisations that come together to share information and to work together. So actually the cohesion across Brighton and Hove and East Sussex has been a very positive thing to bring those organisations together. And we are seeing that there's more widespread inclusion and access through that service into more areas. I think what's kind of happening, which is good and bad, is that the service is settling down after the pandemic, but now there is this instruction from DFE to represent a wider area. And so we're going through this merger with West Sussex now as well, which is slightly distracting. But there's lots going on. We're really pleased to have a residency from the London Mozart Players, of course, to have the RPO as part of Bexhill Festival of Music and other activities, and then to be working with lots of other partners, again, Battle Festival, Riot Jazz Festival, etc., those other partners, to make sure, and to using the music service to support that activity as well, indirectly through the pavilion. So there's lots of opportunities. I think if we could get the bus on an app coming into Bexhill as well, then that would be really brilliant.
Lovely. There don't appear to be any more questions or comments, so I'd just like to round up by thanking you very much indeed for coming along and presenting to us tonight. And as I've said to the other presenters tonight, you're very welcome to remain for the rest of the meeting, or you may leave if you wish. Thank you. So moving on then to our agenda item, we're back to item 7 now, to receive the report of the Cabinet on matters for determination by full Council at its meeting on the 4th of September. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that report of the Cabinet meeting held on the 4th of September be approved and adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Proshak, thank you. Does anybody wish to reserve this item for discussion? No? Okay. So as the minute has not been reserved for discussion and it has already been moved and seconded, I shall now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Item 8 then, to receive the report of the Audit and Standards Committee on matters for determination by full Council at its meeting held on the 26th of July. Councillor John Barnes, Vice Chair of the Audit and Standards Committee. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Gray. Anybody like to reserve this item for discussion? Councillor Field.
Sorry, Chair, I'm slightly flummoxed. We're on item 8. Yes? Doesn't mention minutes, it talks about the recommendation.
case I would like to ask a question.
So you'd like to reserve this matter? Thank you. Yes. So I'm now going to proceed to deal with the reserved minute. So, Councillor Field.
Yes, thank you. This refers to the retention of the term of office of the independent member. And I should probably know the answer to this, but I wasn't sure, how do we recruit independent members? Is it an open process, or do we just ask somebody we think would be appropriate? And secondly, is there a maximum term that an independent member can serve?
Councillor Barnes.
Yes, indeed. To answer the second question first, you can have 2 terms of office, but not 3. We do advertise when there is a vacancy. We usually get more than one applicant, and we do interview and then determine on the suitability of the applicant for appointment. So it is a very open and quite transparent process, but like much of audit work, it doesn't quite get the publicity it deserves.
Thank you. Councillor Field. So, having asked the question and it having been answered, I will now put the motion to the vote to recommend that the term of office for independent person standards, Rose Durban, be extended by a further term of 4 years until December 2027. It's been motioned and seconded, so are we all in content? Those in favour? Yep, that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to proceed to item 9 on the agenda to receive the inaugural annual report of the Audit and Standards Committee on Audit Matters. As Vice Chair of this committee, Councillor Barnes, would you like to move?
Yes, Chair. I won't say a great deal, but you used the word inaugural. We took 2 important decisions this year. One was to conduct the first ever self-assessment that the committee has conducted. We did that very thoroughly. We shall be doing it again, and it will become part of our regular process. But what we also resolved, given the importance of audit work, is that we ought to draw what we do to the attention of the full council and offer an opportunity to full council to ask questions and discuss what we do. And of course, I particularly stress the very valuable work that internal audit does, which is an extraordinary process in which we invest a good deal of money but yield enormous benefits. And that really is a major part of our work. We also have to look after standards, which is a less nice part of our work in a way. But all of this is briefly listed, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members have.
So the motion that the annual report of the Audit and Standards Committee on audit-related matters be received has been proposed. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Stanger. Does anybody wish to call this and reserve it for discussion? In which case then, can I put it to the vote, please? All those in favour? Lovely, that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Item 12. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13. Oh, have I missed 10 out? I do beg your pardon. Item 10 then, to receive the report of the Human Resources Committee on matters for determination by full council at its meeting held on the 30th of August. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that report of the Human Resources Committee meeting held on the 30th of August 2023 be approved and adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Proshak. Does anybody wish to call any part of this report over? In which case, then it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. So, item 12. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13, consideration be given to the motion to Council which has been submitted by Councillor Legg as detailed in our agenda. Councillor Legg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fire safety is a fundamental element of a well-functioning society, and it's our collective responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of all its members. Fire is both an elemental force and a significant energy source. While it has its uses, it can also be destructive, and at times terrifying when it's not managed properly. It's evident that fire can be abused, especially by those with the means to exploit insurance claims to their advantage, often at the expense of ordinary citizens. A decent society makes sure that it safeguards its less privileged members, permanent and newly arrived, and educates them on fire safety. The alarming decrease in specialist fire safety staff in England's fire services since 2011 is a matter of great concern. These dedicated professionals play a crucial role in ensuring that high-risk buildings adhere to safety regulations and in taking appropriate action against landlords who neglect safety standards. A reduction in funding for fire services at the national level, coupled with real-term budget cuts, has further exacerbated this situation. Additionally, the decrease in fire safety audits and enforcement notices is a distressing trend. It's clear that we need to re-evaluate priorities and invest more in fire safety measures to protect our communities effectively. The shift towards local authorities as a primary source of funding for fire and rescue services, driven by austerity measures over the last 13 years, is a concerning development that could and probably will jeopardise public safety. Furthermore, the rise in non-fire incidents attended by fire and rescue services, such as climate-related flooding, road traffic collisions, transport of bariatric patients and hazardous chemical incidents, demonstrates the broad range of responsibilities that these services bear. And as such, any cuts to local fire services are clearly a potential threat to public safety and property protection. We are deeply troubled by the reported stall in recruiting retained firefighters due to concerns amongst employers that their employees are in fact being shunted around the district to cover gaps there rather than locally. And a shortage of firefighters could lead to longer response times and increased risks to firefighters during emergencies. It's crucial that we address these issues promptly to ensure that our community remains safe and resilient. In light of these pressing concerns, I urge you to support the motion aimed at maintaining and even strengthening our local fire services. Our community's safety should always be our top priority, and we must take immediate action to reverse these worrying trends. Let's work together to ensure that adequate resources and funding are allocated to our fire and rescue services to protect our fellow citizens and property effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Legg. Councillor Creasy.
It came to light earlier on this year that...
Sorry, are you seconding this?
Oh, yes, yes, I can do.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. So, I can now call on you to speak.
Oh, okay. Getting in a muddle there. Okay, so it came to light earlier on this year that there was a move to change the way that the fire station at the Ridge in Hastings was to be manned. Rather than as it is at the moment with a full-time staff all the time, they were going to change it down. They were also going to look at employing more retained fire persons who are usually employed by other people and then come out and do what they need to do. Now, the thing of it is that in Rye, we used to have 2 fire vehicles and one was taken away. It takes 2 teams, 2 fire vehicles, their teams, to deal with a house fire, just an ordinary house fire. So at the moment, we are very bereft of that kind of thing. I am aware that we are lucky in Rye in as much as we've got a local business who is a former fire person anyway. It's a chap that owns Rye Hire. He does actually employ 2 chaps that are actually retained firemen, and he's happy for them to continue doing that. I've also had a couple of conversations with various other members of their team where there is great concern that because of the cost of living crisis, because a lot of businesses find themselves in very difficult circumstances, they are not happy about taking employees who are retained fire persons, which is making it more dangerous. And we also have the situation where quite a lot of the other equipment, like the aerial ladder, there's only one now because the other one, I think, was broken. And if it's in one side of the county and we have a fire like we had in Rye in the George Hotel, it could be that somebody could have died. So when we went to see, we were invited to go and see all various communities, and there was a tremendous response, and the people are very, very concerned about their safety, because if those firemen go on from the ridge, the time that they take them to respond to things in the villages will be such that people's lives could be put at risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bayliss, then Councillor Mear, and then Councillor Hacking. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. We brought this motion before full council tonight because we are really concerned about proposed cuts to fire services. Since 2010-11, the authority has had to make savings of approximately £11.2 million to its budget, and that's not the end of it. A report to the Fire Authority last week talked about the scale of the cuts required, and I'm quoting now, it said that that efficiencies alone will not be sufficient to bridge the funding gap, and I have supplied a copy of that paper to Councillor Barnes, who contacted me. We know that now the Fire Authority is beginning to cut back on services. In 2022, there were cuts to Battle Fire Station. It had 2 appliances running out of Battle. That was one of those appliances has been withdrawn, and that has had an impact on the staffing levels. And also we know that there has been a reduction in staffing at Bexhill Fire Station. So now there are just 12 firefighters based there and a 2-watch system. Last week, or the week before last, the 7th of September, we had a sort of serious house fire in Bexhill, in Albany Road, in my ward. 5 engines attended that, including 2 appliances from Bohemia Road in Hastings. So if the number of firefighters are reduced in Hastings, and we know that that's the area where they're most likely to make cuts, we think that only 1 engine would have been able to attend from there. We know that also 1 came from the Ridge, which is also the subject of a review. The Fire Authority haven't finalised yet how they're going to deliver these cuts. It's over £1 million required. But we do want our officers to be involved in those discussions and putting forward the safety of our residents and making the case for fire safety. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Mear.
Chairman, I represent a rural ward, and I share the concerns of others which have been expressed here this evening. In the rural parts, we have narrow roads, we have large distances, we have many wooden houses, and of course it takes much more time for the engines to come out from Hastings to a distant rural part than it does to get into a town. In Fairlight, in recent years, we've had at least 2 serious fires. In one, a lady died. In another, a bungalow was completely destroyed by fire. And that one, I think, is within the last year. As has been indicated, it's not just a question of the number of appliances, it's how they are staffed. Whether the firefighters are permanently at the station and ready to come out when there's a call, or whether they have to come from their homes, and that can be because they're retained firemen, part-time firemen, or they could be, as has been proposed, they could be permanent firemen, fully employed firemen, but nevertheless on duty at home. And that additional time to come out to the station, to get changed, and then to go out could make such a difference to the outcome of a fire. This is not the first time this sort of thing has come up. I have correspondence going back to 2012 from my time on the parish council. I have wrote then, and I think we were successful. I've written again, and I shall continue to do so. But I strongly support this motion, and I hope other councillors will vote for it too.
Thank you, Councillor Mear. Councillor Lizzie Hacking and then Councillor Kirby Green.
Thank you. So there's been lots of this could happen and that could happen as part of this, and Councillor Legg's motion did concern me when I first read it because there wasn't any obvious information that I could refer back to. So I did a little bit of research on my own, and what I've been told is that reductions in crew, engines and operational hours, which ones are you actually specifically referring to? What decisions have been made? There are changes to crewing patterns and measures to work more efficiently, but I've been assured that they're currently over-establishment on staff. There's made no redundancies, no fire station has been closed, and more and better vehicles have been purchased. So every change that is being implemented, I've been told, is a subject of extensive public consultation, which hopefully we can all engage with, and subsequent staff consultation as well. So I think it's important, a bit like with the Northeye debate, it'd be good to get the facts. We all do obviously agree that fire safety is really, really concerning, but I think let's just make sure we're all debating the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Eleanor Kirby Green, then Councillor John Barnes, Simon and Councillor Field.
Thanks, Chairman. Actually, Councillor Hacking has pretty much said what I was going to say. I probably need to declare an interest because I actually attended the Fire Authority meeting that you referred to as a substitute member. I don't believe, as you've said, I think this is like Northeye. You know, your response to Northeye is, well, we're jumping the gun. We don't actually know what's happening. We don't know what is happening. If any redundancies or anything is happening, it'll go out to consultation so we can all engage. And the other thing I'd say is that I'm still not quite... I don't quite understand why we're debating it here. There is a fire authority. Each political party is represented on that. There's a very strong Labour, representation on that. And I think we should be leaving it up to them, and we shouldn't be talking about hypothesis, what might happen, what might not happen. And I think we need to let the fire authority, who have that job, and then if they do make decisions, that it comes out to us to consult. I'm not sure what we're debating because nothing's been decided.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby Green. Councillor John Barnes.
Yes, Chairman, I'm going to move an amendment because I want us to be realistic. First of all, there is nothing to quarrel with in the first paragraph on that concerned. I think we would all support what is said there. What I want to do is reword paragraphs 2 and 3. And in particular, I think we need to understand much more what we're debating. And the best way of doing that is to involve overview and scrutiny. So Council asks that the overview and scrutiny and Cabinet engage with the East Sussex Fire Authority if and when there is a review of fire service provision. And paragraph 3 requests the Chief Executive to write to local MPs to ask that the government agrees a 3-year settlement for the fire authority and agrees the temporary removal of the referendum cap. These are practical proposals to actually help the Fire Authority. I have to say, as a former chair of the Fire Authority, the last review we conducted, at which indeed we stood down one of the appliances in Rye and one in Battle, was designed to make sure that we had 18 frontline fire appliances to attend fires. It is no good having an appliance sitting in a station if it cannot be manned for frontline work. And you need to get as many appliances as are required as fast as possible to a fire. And indeed, we actually beat the times laid down by the government quite consistently in our Fire Authority. Fires, apart from those caused by wood-burning stoves, are actually well down. A lot of the work now is to do with safety, particularly, oddly enough, with our fast-flowing rivers. But most of the work now is attending road traffic accidents. And again, that obviously is an increasing share of the load. If we are going to help them financially, the money is not going to come, as everybody knows in this chamber, from central government. The pressures on the social security budget, the pressures on the health service budget, adult social care, you name it, and the defence budget with Ukraine there, means that both Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Shadow Chancellor are saying they cannot make financial commitments. What they can do is to enable us to precept, as the Fire Authority, to actually deliver more resources, as indeed the Police and Crime Commissioner has done. And therefore it seems to me we need a practical suggestion, and I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Winter, I think you were first to get your hand up there. Right, so we're going to debate the amendment, and I'm going to call on Councillor Maynard.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. And I think that, you know, there's no monopoly here politically on caring for the fire service. And I think that, you know, it is, as Councillor Barnes said, about practical solutions if indeed there is a problem. And other members are absolutely right when they say, you know, as an authority, we've said to a lot of people who came along to hear about another petition today that it was premature. This is exactly that too. This is a premature motion in the way that it was originally proposed by members of the Labour Party. Let me be quite clear why that is and draw another analogy. Because there are no firm proposals on the table. And I'll go even further than that. To suggest that the downgrading of a particular fire station is imminent is not only disingenuous, it's not accurate. It is, as elected members, absolutely right that we are the conduit for local residents' concerns, and it's absolutely right that the Fire Authority debate these matters thoroughly. But, you know, let's be really clear about this. We talk about, and it's referred to the Fire Authority budget. In a similar way, if we brought a motion to this chamber today talking about the black hole in Rother finances and talk about, you know, I've heard that you might be closing Egerton Park or that you'll be shutting all the public conveniences, we'd be rightly criticised for not only being premature, but also putting out misinformation in the public domain. And that putting out misinformation in the public domain is of primary concern to me, because we need to be honest and upfront with residents that there are challenges across the public sector. But we also need to be really clear that when there are those challenges in the public sector, that we, as members of the respective local authorities and indeed the Fire Authority, lobby government, but that we do so in a practical sense, as Councillor Barnes has alluded to. For a long time we've talked about a 3-year settlement. For a long time, we've talked about lifting the cap if we need indeed to raise the cap after properly consulting about a particular cost pressure. So we tell the public very openly, very honestly about what the issues are. That is, I'm sure, what the Fire Authority will do. But to suggest that there are huge cuts around the corner, to name sites when indeed no consultation has taken place, is not only disingenuous, it's frankly a little bit naughty. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I shall support Councillor Barnes' proposition because, as he said, it's about practical solutions and it's about, once again, lobbying government, asking for a 3-year settlement and asking for the ability of the cap to be lifted. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard, and congratulations from getting just on your 3 minutes. That's brilliant. Councillor McKirk, did you wish to speak to the amendment or the original motion? Yeah. Can I ask you to speak to the amendment?
So we've heard that the motion is premature. It's not premature. It's getting ahead of the issue. It's dealing with an issue which is clearly in the public domain. So we're being accused on this side of being naughty, of making things up and preempting things which aren't in the public domain. Just like a quote from the Sussex World online newspaper from an article in January of this year that describes proposals by East Sussex Fire and Rescue East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service was proposing to turn the Ridge Fire Station to a day crewed station, meaning firefighters would work on station during the day and respond on call from home during the evening. Those are exactly the issues we're talking about, the proposals that we have heard described in public meetings. It says that, I'm reading from the Sussex World. So those were proposals from 2023, January 2023. Those are proposals which we need to deal with. Myself, my colleague from Ryan Winchelsea, Councillor Cheryl Creaser, our prospective parliamentary candidate, colleagues from the fire. Just, we showed you respect when you were speaking earlier. I expect the same. Thank you. We were accompanied by colleagues from the Fire Brigades Union, from colleagues from the County Council and the Fire Authority when we held public meetings in February in Winchelsea and in Rye and other parts of the area. And the extent of public support, petitions which we introduced and which gained widespread support locally, really demonstrated the concerns and the fears of local people, which are genuine and real, and which we, as colleagues have described earlier on, which we have to support and we have a duty to represent here. So that's my contribution.
Thank you. I've just been advised that this 30-minute debate has already run to 25 minutes, so I would ask people to be really succinct. Councillor Field, did you wish to speak to the amendment or to the motion?
Probably the motion, but as we haven't seen a copy of the amendment, I'm just slightly in the dark. What I'm going to say could well be applied to the amendment, which I'm going to vote against for the reasons I'm going to say when I talk to the motion.
Thank you.
Can I continue? And can I move that we extend the debate?
I think that's possibly important that we should do that. Is everybody in favour of extending the debate by perhaps just 10 minutes? Anybody against that idea? No? Okay, then we'll extend it for 10 minutes. Thank you very much. So do you wish to speak to the amendment now?
As I said previously, Chair, I haven't seen the amendment and it's difficult to know because I couldn't write it down as fast as it was being read out. But as I don't think I'm going to speak, right? Because actually I've got previous when it comes to matters of the Fire and Rescue Service or the Fire Brigade as it was when I started. 3 times
Once before my term of office on the County Council began in 1992, and twice since then there have been attempts by the Fire Authority to downgrade Battle Fire Station from a fully day-crewed station to a station with retained fire staff. And the reason it didn't succeed was massive campaign by locals and myself, but also because the Fire Authority was persuaded that what looked like a very good thing on a piece of paper, much in the same way as 18 appliances looks really good on a piece of paper, did not work in practice when you took into account the fact that, certainly in many rural areas, retained firefighters have to be within a certain distance of the fire station. They often are working and can't get employers to give them their time off, or they are indeed themselves sole traders and can't turn their businesses or can't close their businesses if they're going to fight a fire. You have to factor into that as well the very difficult traffic conditions there are from getting from wherever you live to wherever the fire is. Adding to that in Battle High Street flying freeholds, which means that a fire in one premise may actually escalate very quickly because the upstairs, the lofts, they run together. They haven't got partition walls. So there's all these factors which combine, I believe, to make a really good plan on paper completely unworkable. And that is why I really would like to support this motion, because we're not asking to stop specific cuts. We're asking that the Fire and Rescue Service takes account of circumstances and really looks hard when it's doing its budgets and looking at what it does to make sure that the interests of the public are kept to the forefront. Because in all our towns and villages in this district and throughout the county, circumstances vary, and a plan which looks good doesn't always work when it has to be put into practice. And what we don't want is to find out it's not working when something is on fire and it can't be stopped.
Thank you very much, Councillor Field. Would it help members if I asked our Democratic Services to read out Councillor Barnes's amendment, please?
So as I understand it, the paragraph 1 remains as is, and then paragraph 2 will read, Council asks that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and Cabinet engage with East Sussex Fire Authority if and when there is a review of the fire service provision. And paragraph 3 requests that the Chief Executive write to the local MPs to ask the government agrees a 3-year settlement
for the Fire Authority.
For the Fire Authority and temporary removal of the referendum cap.
Thank you. Is that correct, Councillor Barnes?
That's correct.
Okay, so we are still debating the amendment. I've got Councillor Terry Byrne, Councillor Bayliss, and then Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Amendments that are sort of bounced on you are always slightly difficult, and I'm aware that the previous speakers have quite a lot of knowledge of the existing debate that's going on about the provision of fire services. I'm unfortunately not party to any of that. I'm merely looking at the actual wording in front of the motion. And as from what I can see, it doesn't carry all the political baggage that we seem to be trying to impugn from both sides. From both sides. And as an independent, I find that sad. The motion, Councillor Barnes is quite happy with paragraph 1. I don't see anything in paragraph 2 that precludes the actions that he is proposing. And I don't see anything in paragraph 3 that in any way contradicts anything or asks the government a political question or tries to jump the gun, assuming that various cuts are going to happen when, as Councillor Maynard quite rightly said, we don't know. So I don't see anything wrong with the motion as is. I'm slightly worried that it has become a political football, and I think in other days, other times, this motion would have gone through as just basically a good thing. So I'm very much in favour of keeping the motion as presented, and I would vote against an amendment.
Thank you. That's very clear, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Bayliss.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I just would like to put everybody straight. Paragraph 4.8.2 actually sets out the options for achieving the £1.5 million worth of savings for financial year 24-25, which includes a choice of between Bohemia Road and the Ridge running as a single watch on a 2-2-4 system, which means the reduction of 4 watch managers, saving £263,000 every financial year. And or option 2, which is the self-rostering at the Ridge only, which has a saving of 4 firefighters at £212,000 per annual. So the idea that there aren't already options on the table, I'm afraid, is frankly wrong. And the reason, I would actually, if we were talking about something into the future, I would actually sort of think, well, the Cabinet and Overview and Scrutiny could debate this. But actually, it's much more important. These options, there will be recommendations on these going forward to the December meeting. And so, therefore, I think it is really important. I would like to see the Rother Safety Partnership take this on and lobby on our behalf, and the voice of local residents heard. So please, I would urge you to vote against the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. We're rapidly running out of time, even on our extended. So I'm going to invite Councillor Coleman and then Councillor Stanger. I'm going to ask you last, and then we will take a vote on the amendment. I do beg your pardon, Councillor Barnes. You're absolutely right. You do have the right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to speak against the amendment and for the original motion. Chair, we've been here before. I remember in 2017, well, a little bit before then, we were told that there weren't going to be cuts to policing. The rumours about cuts to policing were wrong. It wasn't going to happen. And then what happened? 20,000 officers cut, a mistake which was sort of rectified a few years hence after we realised that there was no longer police on our streets. Only this time, we know there is a review happening. We know that there will be cuts happening to our fire service, most likely. I noticed when I hear Councillor Maynard say that nothing's happening, don't worry, it's not happened yet, that I look to the firefighters in the gallery and they're shaking their heads. I think they know a little bit more than you do, Councillor Maynard, about that issue. £11.2 million since 2010 has been cut from our fire authority. 13 years of cuts to public services. How many more cuts? How many more cuts? Because for every single cut you make to the fire authority, that's an extra fire, that's an extra minute that our fire services cannot get to those houses, cannot get to those properties. And I am concerned, the firefighters are concerned, the people are concerned, and this motion, the original motion, sets out very clearly our red lines as a district council so that we can go to those authorities, to the MP, and say this is what we do not want to happen. No more cuts, please. It's that simple. If Councillor Barnes wants it to go to scrutiny, he's welcome to bring that up on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm sure they'll have a wonderful discussion about it. But I support the original motion in its entirety, and I encourage everyone to do the same, because it's not a political matter. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Because any house could be set on fire, and you'll be thankful when the fire service come to put it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Could I please remind all members that it's just a gentle courtesy to listen to what people are saying rather than having little conversations between us. Thank you. So I'm now going to call upon Councillor Stanger, and then Councillor John Barnes will have the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, I had a meeting with a colleague from Hastings, part of the Hastings and Rother Safer Partnership, and I brought it onto the agenda for the forthcoming partnership meeting next Wednesday. And we'll have an attendance from the East Sussex Fire and Rescue Board there. So we can bring it to attention. I'll feed back to Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stanger. Councillor Barnes.
Chairman, I clearly haven't conveyed to Councillor Byrne and others the fact that I share their concern. Councillor Bayliss is quite right. There are 4 options on the table, and one of them is concerned with the ridge and the possible alteration of the watch structure. It's one of 4 options. There are 3 other tranches which don't affect frontline services at all. But they will still hurt the work that is done by the fire service. And important areas of the fire service, like the 10,000 home visits they pay, may be vulnerable. So what we need to do is not to be token, but actually come up with a solution. And the solution is very obvious, and the Police and Crime Commissioner has used it to enormous effect in the last few years in strengthening the police service, and that is to remove the referendum cap. The other thing which would help the Fire Authority enormously, and would help this authority, is if we had a 3-year financial settlement, not a 1-year settlement. I share the concern, I worry about the options, but I am proposing a practical solution instead of a token vote. I ask you to vote for the amendment.
Thank you very much. So the amendment has been proposed and has been seconded. Could we take a vote, please, on the amendment? All those in favour of the amendment? Okay, all those against?
Gesture politics.
Are there any abstentions? Just the one. Thank you. Thank you very much. So then we will put the full motion to the vote. This has also been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? This is carried. Any abstention? Do we need against and abstentions? No? Yes? So are there anybody against the original motion? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So moving on then to item 13, to receive the report of the Director, Place and Climate Change, on the delegations to officers in respect of the Planning Service. Councillor Mear.
I so move.
Councillor Mear has moved that the report be approved and adopted. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Stanger, Councillor Gray, thank you. Does anybody wish to comment or debate this item? Are we happy? It's been proposed and seconded. Are we happy to pass this? Yes? Can I see hands up voting to approve? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 14, to receive the report of the Chief Executive on the designation of the Council's interim monitoring officer. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report be approved and adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Does anybody wish to ask any questions or debate this item? In which case, then, can you show your approval for this, please? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. So we've already discussed item 15, so moving on to item 16 then, please. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move the report be approved and adopted regarding the report of the Chief Executive, the appointment of 2 executive directors to the board of Rother DC Housing Company.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gray. Is there any debate to be had on this matter? Councillor Biggs.
Right, not used to it. I've been asking questions for the last 7 weeks of the council and Rother Housing Company. At the last full council meeting, I questioned the legality of the board meeting and of the non-executive directors, and was told by the legal team everything was hunky-dory. After that, I emailed a council officer with a series of questions, who in turn forwarded them on to a member of the housing company. I waited 4 weeks and didn't get nothing reply to my questions. I then contacted a monitoring officer and said I wanted to put questions on tonight's agenda. Lo and behold, a member of the housing company phoned me that afternoon, surprise, surprise, informing me that the legal department of Rother Housing Company and of the council were now looking into my questions. It appears that the non-executive directors were not company directors at all. They wasn't registered in Company House, and therefore the board meeting states you must have 3 directors, one of whom is a council officer elected, which Councillor Thomas was. I'm still waiting for the legality of whether that board meeting was legal or not. I welcome the opportunity for the council to get its act together and to appoint these 2 gentlemen, because I presume, looking at their qualifications, they're very suitable. The only question I got is, I'm just wondered what else has gone on with the housing company that hasn't come through to us, because obviously that is quite a serious legal obligation that wasn't followed up or wasn't followed up by the housing company and the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Councillor Biggs. We have had an item on the agenda this evening about housing company governance, and in Councillor Oliver's statement, he did say that a report was coming forward to the Audit and Standards Committee. I think it's Cabinet, actually, later in the year. And we are currently, we've also, our internal audit team has also looked at the company governance. And I think in Councillor Oliver's statement, he did make clear that there has been some learning, and we need to have a transparent and the right culture around the housing company going forward. So I appreciate, I'm sorry to hear that you didn't get an answer to your question, but I do feel that we are dealing with this as we go forward through the right process. Thank you.
Thank you. The only one question follow-up, then, will I still get an answer to the legality, or whether that board meeting was legal or not?
Yes. I'm told yes.
Very much, and I look forward to it coming to the Audit and Standards.
Councillor Thomas.
Chair, members of the Council, I'd like to address what you've just said and also wider issues which have been raised. I would like to make it clear to everybody that as the Chair of the Housing Company, I have a legal obligation, no less, to defend the reputation of the company and to explain why it has taken certain action. Okay? So this isn't a prepared speech, this is just giving you my opinion. The first thing to note is that at the time when the administrative errors took place, which we'd already heard about, the company was involved in a vast number of things which were quite properly the priority of the company. Firstly, there was the preparation of the new housing scheme, a major change in the company's plans, and that entailed a variation of contract with Waits that needed to be negotiated and that is still under negotiation. And those negotiations are taking place in a highly competent way. I can tell you that the negotiations have saved this council literally millions of pounds already because of the way in which those negotiations are being conducted by our COO, who is one of the best-known housing professionals in the southeast of England. Secondly, we're also preparing the appropriate planning application to go with that same scheme. And obviously an enormous amount of work is involved in the preparation of the planning application, including detailed discussions with other planning officers. Thirdly, there were negotiations with the Chief Finance Officer over the setting out of the financial plan for the company in the future, taking both the short-term form of a short-term agreement, a working capital agreement, and a longer-term loan agreement. Now, these are very detailed discussions, and our very competent finance director has been involved in those, and he has come up with some excellent ideas. There are various documents which have been prepared, which are being considered by solicitors, and so that work was going on. On top of that, we were responding to proposals from our solicitors, Travers, who raised certain problems around the governance of the company, including problems with our articles of agreement, which could have interfered with the company's status as a non-contracting authority. And negotiations around that have also been ongoing. We're also involved in discussions around the governance of the company with the new shareholders board, which will have an oversight of the company, and it's absolutely vital to maintain the proper balance between the independence of the company and the board, which is a legal requirement for a company, and on the other hand, satisfactory supervision by you, the councillors, to ensure that ratepayers' money is being safeguarded and spent wisely. And so discussions are taking place in which I and members of the company and members of the council are involved to achieve that right balance. And I can tell you that those negotiations are going very well indeed, and we are moving towards a consensus on this issue, involving our solicitors, the council solicitors, the council's officers, and employees of the company. So all these very, very important things, quite properly, the priorities of the company were going on, and at the same time, we're also thinking about the position of directors after the election. Don't forget the election has changed a great deal for this council. And I will put my hand up and say that I personally wanted to retain, if we could find any way of doing it, the services of two of the directors of the company. I think everybody in this council knows the way in which Paul Cortell is noted for his meticulousness, his thoroughness, his financial knowledge, his attention to detail. And we wanted to retain that, if we could. We also, and I mean by that I and other members of the company, wish to retain the services of Lynn, who is known for her enthusiasm and her environmental credentials. And so negotiations were going on behind the scenes to see what could be done legally with council officers, and that was happening in terms too of the way in which we appointed these new external directors. And there the issue was whether the council could give permission through delegated authority or whether it had to go through a different procedure. We thought that the delegated authority system, and the council thought the delegated authority system, would be a satisfactory solution. It turned out not to be the case, which is why now we are rectifying and regularising the situation. But I want to end by saying I'm proud of the company. I'm proud of what the company is setting out to achieve. I'm proud of the people who work for the company. And I think they have had the right priorities in concentrating on making sure we deliver 200 houses, make a site that was stalled, and make it do something for the people of the town, produce affordable, ecological homes, and do something to solve the housing crisis. The company made that its priority, and quite rightly so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas, for your impassioned response. The motion has been put that we approve or receive the report of the Chief Executive on the appointment of two executive directors to the board of Rother District Council Housing Company. It's been proposed by Councillor Oliver, seconded by Councillor Proshak. All those in favour? That's carried. That concludes our business tonight, and I would like to thank you all for your attendance.